Imagine a world, not so different from our own, where some people are born into chains as slaves. That was the life of Yuvenis. His parents were slaves in land, ruled by a cruel master, named Dominus. That meant, Yuvenis was his property from day one. Think about it. A brand seared onto his shoulder, a symbol of ownership. Shackles, not just on his legs with hands, but on his spirit. He was tethered to a black chain, its length dictating his world. Funny thing, though, the harder you worked, the more useful you were, the longer that chain became. Some slaves, the truly loyal ones, even got their chains removed altogether. These freer slaves often became the worst of the bunch. They were the dominie's enforcers and the slave drivers, the ones who cracked the whip and made sure everyone else stayed in line. They lorded their tiny bit of power over the other slaves, forgetting where they came from. The biggest rule: don't cross the border. Each dominus had their own land, their own slaves, and venturing into another's territory was a death wish. Unless, of course, your own dominus gave you permission for trade or some other business. Then, with the other okay of dominus, you could travel. But freedom, not really. Yuvenis, like all the other kids around him, was raised to be a good slave. Obedient, loyal, hardworking, respectful to those higher up the ladder. He was taught to follow orders without question. And of course, to worship Dominus, and any other Dominus liked. This was just how things were. Always had been. Here's the messed up part. Most slaves didn't see anything wrong with their lives. They thought they had it good. They had food, shelter, and believed that Dominus was looking out for them. They even trusted the slave drivers, even when they were being whipped for no reason. They swallowed everything Dominus told them, even if it changed from day to day. He knows best, they'd say. He's in charge. That's why no one ever tried to escape or rebel. Why would they? This was the best life they could imagine. But Dominus, he wasn't some benevolent leader. He was a tyrannical user. He exploited his slaves for power, for money, for whatever he wanted. Their lives meant nothing to him, except as tools. The twisted genius of Dominus was how he kept people in line. He didn't just use power, he used manipulation and various brainwashing agendas. He offered people things they craved physically, things they quickly became addicted to. First, there were benefits. For example, access to shops, restaurants, entertainment, better living conditions, better jobs. Normal stuff, but in this world, it felt like a privilege. And to get those privileges, they had to work for Dominus. The harder they work, the better benefits. Then there was money. Dominus made sure everything cost money. Food, clothes, shelter, even basic necessities. So, the more money people had, the more they could enjoy life. So, the slaves worked themselves to the bone, chasing that next coin, thinking it would buy them happiness and content life. Of course, Dominus controlled the money supply. He'd dole it out, just enough to keep common people working hard, but never enough to truly escape. He even created a system where the money would flow back to him through taxes and inflated prices. He'd also give the best hardworking people a bonus, knowing full well that they'd spend it, and he'd get it all back, plus more. And then came debt, mortgages, loans, credits. Dominus encouraged it all. He knew that if the slaves were drowning in debt, they'd do anything for money. They wouldn't care about the consequences. Finally, there was family. Dominus pushed slaves to have kids, and lots of them. He knew, slave with a family was easier to control. They'd work harder, accept less, and never risk anything that could hurt their loved ones. Plus, each new child was another slave born into the system. The slaves were blind to it all. They thought they were living the dream. But they were just cogs in Dominus's machine. They owned nothing, not even themselves. They were bought, sold, and used as Dominus saw fit. They were abused, exploited, and sacrificed for his gain. In wars, in riots, in experiments, in depraved pleasures, their lives were disposable. To keep them from waking up, Dominus controlled the narrative. He twisted the truth, spread propaganda, and manipulated reality through the media, through social trends, through religion, and through the very laws they lived by. He divided them, too. Politics, religions, nationality, social class, etc. He pitted them against each other, using fear, hatred, envy, and greed as weapons. Sometimes, he even had them kill each other, weakening their ability to resist. All of this, because the slaves were the source of Dominus's power. The more slaves he had, the richer and more powerful he became. And still, the slaves believed they were living the best life possible. Even young Yuvenis believed, at first. But then, Yuvenis was the fifth child of older parents. They loved him, in their own way, and raised him according to the rules of Dominus. But his older siblings saw him as a nuisance. He was always getting in the way, always getting into trouble. He was often punished, even when it wasn't his fault. He craved their love and approval, but it was rarely given freely. He became addicted to the occasional praise, to the absence of punishment. He loved his parents, because that's what he was supposed to do, but he didn't understand why their love was conditional. He loved them, even when they were wrong, even when they behaved badly. He was learnt how to move in chains, how to work hard, how to be a good slave. He was told to look at the world through the approved holes in the fence, the ones Dominus wanted him to see. These were the only correct views, he was told. He learned that if he followed the rules, he'd be rewarded with a good job, a good wife, and a happy life, just like everyone else. So, he tried. He tried to be the son his parents wanted, the slave Dominus demanded. He adopted their dreams as his own. A good wife, a nice house, a comfortable life, and the approval of his parents and peers. But it wasn't his dream. His young adulthood wasn't the idyllic picture he'd been promised. He tried to fit in, to be like everyone else, but it didn't work. He was too sensitive, too emotional. He noticed the cracks in the system, the things that didn't add up. He asked questions, and the adults got angry. He was punished for his curiosity. He started to act differently, and the other young slaves turned on him. They mocked him, humiliated him, and called him lazy and insolent. His parents saw him as a failure, and their love grew colder. He couldn't even find a girlfriend. He longed for love, but he couldn't connect with anyone. He drifted, avoiding the jobs his parents wanted for him, dreaming of something different, something he couldn't quite define. He became a disappointment, a reject. He started drinking, taking drugs, and hanging out with other lost souls, trying to escape the reality that was crushing him. He fell to the fringes of the slave society. He was miserable. He wanted to be good, to be loved, but he couldn't. He hated life. He was living, but he felt trapped. So, he drank more, drugged more, and tried to forget. One day, it all caught up to him. An overdose of opiates, mixed with alcohol, left him dying in a park, alone and forgotten. As he lay there, he felt the world spinning around him. He felt the cold sweat on his forehead. He begged for it to end. And then, he slipped into a coma. When he opened his eyes, it was evening. He was still in the park, still by the tree. But something was different. He felt physically better, lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from him. But more than that, he felt calm and peaceful. The frustration and pain were gone. It was as if he had died and been reborn in the same moment. Strange thoughts filled his head. He didn't want to be a slave anymore. He had to be free. His happiness lay outside the slave world, beyond the chains, beyond Dominus and his rules, beyond the hypocritical values of slave society. He felt like someone else, trapped in this life. A strong will emerged, a desire to escape, to be free. Yuvenis decided to run away. He didn't know how, but he knew he had to try. Some inner voice told him he would find the answers he needed. And that, my friends, is where our story truly begins. The allegory explained. This story, like many I'll share, is about more than just slaves and masters. It's about the world we live in, the systems that control us, and the choices we make. We talked about family, about growing up, about fitting in or not. We saw how society values obedience and hard work above all else. We learned that every society has its domini, its rulers, who set the rules. We saw that being born into a system often means becoming a part of it, whether we like it or not. We're expected to obey the rules, accept our given identity, and follow the path laid out for us. But at the end of the story, something shifted. Yuvenis realized he didn't have to be a slave. He could change himself, his status. He could run away. And that, my friends, is the forbidden path, the path to freedom. In this story, the dominus represents the forces that control our lives, often in ways we don't even realize. These rules and values may go against our true selves and the way the world should be. To keep people in line, the domini use manipulation, addiction, debt, and division. The story also touches on citizenship, the idea that some people are more legitimate members of society than others. Everything is pre-scripted, predestinated, set up. Common people even couldn't do anything by themselves. The only thing that could change was the dominus and his rules. But at the end of the story, the idea emerges that a slave can change one thing: himself, his statue of a slave. To realize that he wouldn't have to be a slave. And there was for ages one forbidden way, how to do it: run away from slavery. In future videos, we'll explore these ideas further. We'll talk about how to recognize the chains that bind us and how to break free. Okay, so in this part, I want to talk about something, I call it like distorted perception of reality. It's basically how our view of the world and our own lives can be totally off, usually because of how we were raised or what we were taught. Now, this distortion isn't always on purpose, you know. Sometimes it's just random stuff that happens, like trauma, mental health issues, or just plain bad experiences. Life can throw some curveballs. But, and this is the messed up part, a lot of the time this distorted view comes from cultural, political, and social trends. Think about it. It's way easier to control people if they don't see things clearly. It's like authorities love this stuff because it keeps people in line. You might be thinking, okay, so what if we don't see things perfectly? Does it really matter? Well, let me give you an example to show you what I mean. Think about this for a second. Is what we see with our eyes even real? Scientists have proven over and over that our eyes can't see everything. Compared to other animals, we're practically blind. And there are tons of optical illusions and psychological tricks that show how easily our eyesight can be fooled. I even made some videos about this to show you what I'm talking about. And don't forget, most things in the world are invisible to us without special equipment. It's also been shown that we see everything with a slight delay, like our brains are constantly rewinding and replaying what we see. Now, think about all the screens we look at every day: phones, computers, TVs. It's pretty obvious that's what we're seeing is going to be distorted somehow. And that's just with our sight. It's the same with hearing and all our other senses. But people will argue that what they see is the only reality because it's physical according to the material framework. That's what they've been taught since they were kids, and that's what everyone in charge keeps telling them. But can something so inaccurate really be the only way to define reality? What if reality isn't about the physical stuff our senses pick up? Let's dig a little deeper with another example. Imagine a dirty glass of murky water. When we look at it, we see a bunch of different things. First, we see it with our eyes. Then, when we pick it up, we feel it. We might even smell it or take a sip. But no matter what sense we use, the result is the same. It's a dirty glass of gross water. We're going to be careful with it. Even if it doesn't feel bad, it looks unpleasant. And if we're really thirsty and take a sip, it's probably going to taste and smell awful. We'd probably spit it out and toss the glass. That's how we see the situation, based on what our senses tell us. It's our own subjective view. Someone else might have a totally different impression. But here's the thing. What we see is just our own version of the glass, not the actual reality. It's like a copy of the Mona Lisa. It can be super close to perfect, but it'll never be the real thing. So, if we can only see subjective images, what's reality really like? Is it still just a glass of water? I promise you, it's still a glass of water. But our perception is totally messed up. Here's the thing. The glass is actually clean, filled with pure, delicious water. So how come we see a dirty glass with murky, undrinkable water? Like I said before, our minds take in what our eyes see. But that image isn't perfect, because of physical and biological stuff. If we look at it through glasses or a phone, it gets even more distorted. And if we use our other senses, hearing, touch, taste, that adds even more to the image. It's another layer of distortion. But it doesn't stop there. That image goes to other parts of our brain, and that's when things get really crazy. Memories, thoughts, beliefs, emotions, life experiences, our mood, and even what's going on around us, all get mixed in. That's where the clean glass of fresh water turns into a dirty glass of murky water. We've been taught to see the world in a negative way, so we automatically assume the worst. We see clean glasses of clear water every day, but in our minds, we turn them into something gross and undrinkable. You might be wondering, does everything have to turn bad? Unfortunately, yeah, a lot of the time. People are used to seeing themselves and their lives in a negative light. Studies even show that most of our thoughts and memories are negative. That's because we live in a world that makes us think and see things that way. From a young age, we're influenced by the people around us and the authorities who keep us stuck in this negative mindset. As a result, most people think this way and can't appreciate the good things in life. But that's what I want to change with my videos. It's a big part of the spiritual side of my martial art, learning to see the world in a more positive light, to recognize the beauty around us, even when things are tough. Okay, so now let's talk about the second thing that messes with our minds, which I call like holes in the fence. This is super important for understanding how we think. And it's something that a lot of powerful people and companies use to their advantage. Think about when you were a kid. You learned about the world from your parents, or whoever took care of you. They taught you what was right and wrong, what to believe, and how to act. You trusted them, so you didn't question it. Your parents and teachers did the same thing, because that's what they were taught by their parents and teachers. It's like passing a baton in a race. You're supposed to believe it, and pass it on to your kids one day. At first, it seems normal, right? But here's the catch. Imagine the world as a giant garden, surrounded by a fence so high, you can't see over it. All you can see is the fence itself. The authorities in your life, parents, teachers, religious leaders, politicians, they show you holes in the fence, and tell you that you only need to look at the garden through those holes. You trust them, so you do it. And whatever you see through those holes becomes your truth. If you look through those holes, you'll always see the same thing. roses, apple trees, and a nice lawn. You start to believe that's all there is to the world, and you'll defend that belief to anyone. One day, you meet a schoolmate who grew up in a different neighborhood. You start telling them about the roses and apple trees you see through your hole in the fence. But he said that he sees something totally different through their hole, a broken down shed with a pile of tools and a bunch of manure. You disagree, of course. You stand by your truth. Your friend does the same, and you end up arguing. You both think the other person is an idiot, and you stop being friends. Years later, you accidentally wander near a part of the fence you've never seen before. You get curious and decide to take a peek through one of the holes. To your surprise, you see something different: sunflowers, tulips, and all sorts of other plants. You're confused. You think you must be mistaken. So you look through another hole, and you see vegetables. You start looking through more holes, and each time, you see something new and different. This is the beginning of your crisis of faith. You start to doubt everything you've ever been taught. And that's where the story ends. So, what's the deal with these truths and holes in the fence? It's simple. Behind the fence is one garden, with all sorts of flowers, trees, and plants. Everyone who looks through the holes is seeing a part of the same garden, but from a different angle. They're all right, but they're also all living in a lie, because they're only seeing a small piece of the bigger picture. But people ignore the bigger picture, because it's not something they can see or touch. They've made looking through the holes the only truth, and they've built their whole lives around it. Now, we can't really blame our parents for teaching us to see the world through these holes. They're just doing what they think is best. They believe their truth, because it's a truth shared by millions of other people. But it's not just parents and teachers who do this. Everyone in society does it: scientists, artists, the media, and especially people who want to manipulate you. They all try to show you the holes in the fence that benefit them, and they try to convince you that those are the only ones that matter. You can spot these fake holes because you're not allowed to look anywhere else. You're forced to choose between the options they give you. So, if the holes in the fence don't show reality, do we really need to keep looking through them and believing everything we see? And is it really so bad to try to look through other holes? Of course, you don't have to believe everything you see through those holes. But maybe only a monk in a monastery or a hermit in deep woods can afford to totally ignore them. People in the real world need to use those holes to get by. And there's nothing wrong with checking out other holes, as long as you're careful. Some of them might be dangerous, or even evil. Also, people are limited by their own thinking. Most people aren't that smart, to be honest. Some people might think, why not just make our own hole in the fence? I wish it were that easy. But most people don't have the means or the ability to do it. And the few who can often get corrupted by power, greed, and other dark desires. You know, people who can make their own holes have power over others, and of course, money and wealth. Plus, the authorities are always watching those holes, making sure no one tries to look somewhere else or make their own. It's tough for regular people to do much about it. Some people might say, why not just climb over the fence and see the whole garden? That's a good idea, in theory. But here's the problem. We should have to get past our own prejudices, biases, fears, and worries. The fence is really high, and more importantly, we're not allowed to climb it. If we would try, we'd probably get caught and face some serious consequences. And if we would try to climb it, we would quickly realize that the higher we go, the higher the fence gets. No one ever makes it over. But there is a way to get to the other side. And it's surprisingly simple. People think the fence is impenetrable because they're trying to drill holes in it. But a fence is only as strong as we believe it is. It can be an iron wall, or it can be a bush we can walk right through. To make that happen, we have to let go of all the rules and beliefs we've picked up along the way. We have to stop believing in everything we've been told, and finally learn to see the garden by walking through the fence and exploring the whole thing. That's when we'll discover something new and hidden, something we never knew existed. That's what the spiritual side of my martial art is all about, ignoring the truths we can see through the holes in the fence, and using all our energy to walk right through it. Let's recap what we've talked about so far. When people are born, they automatically become slaves, no matter where or to whom they're born. During childhood, they adopt everything that's relevant to their lives in this slave world. Their name, birth date, race, religion, nationality, and all the laws and rules of their environment. They accept all of this based on who their parents are and where they're born. This influence continues as they get older, absorbing information and ideas from schools, other adults, the media, social trends, politics, and religion. As a result, they develop a set of identities that dictate how they behave in society. They think of these identities as their own, accept all the rules that come with them, make decisions based on them, and even have emotions based on them. And of course, they defend them from others. They use these identities depending on the situation. From all of this, people develop their own view of the world, create habits, and start to believe that this adopted view is their personal truth. Eventually, they become true and proper slaves, or citizens. Citizens who see nothing, feel nothing, perceive nothing, and know nothing. They just work, obey, listen, eat, drink, sleep, and believe everything they're told. It all comes to a head when they start a family and pass on their truths to their children. And so it goes on and on. I've also called this slave world, a place that's cut off from true reality, which makes most people accept their slavery as normal. You might be wondering why I said most people, not all. Well, sometimes someone comes along who doesn't see the world the same way as everyone else. They decide they don't want to be like everyone else, and they become different, even rebellious. Usually, they start looking for other holes in the fence, starting with the forbidden ones. They try to find themselves and satisfy their inner desires. When those new ways of seeing the world aren't enough, they look for even more holes. They keep searching, as long as they're alive. These rebellious slaves often follow their own rules and ignore the authorities. But this behavior is usually short-lived. Either they get broken and go back to the others, or they end up having a rough time. Crime, social problems, addiction, mental illness, or even suicide. But there's another option that people overlook. Instead of looking at forbidden holes and focusing on being rebellious, they can try to get to the other side of the fence and then to explore all the space. Let's call this rebellious slave who decided to get to the other side as a fugitive. From the start, these individuals have to be prepared for a hard life. This is different from other spiritual teachings that promise peace and happiness. You know, someone who decides to run away by breaking through the fence, things are different. They can't have what other people have: relationships, jobs, careers, material possessions, common life goals. There won't be any miracles. Instead, with each new discovery, the darkness and chaos will just get deeper. More importantly, a fugitive will start to see the world from a different perspective, one that was previously unknown. At this stage, they'll adopt certain attitudes and values that will change how they see their life and the world around them. The world will probably see them as crazy, strange, or foolish. When that happens, it's a sign that the fugitive has entered a space outside the fenced-in slave world, which I call garden. Let me tell you more about that. The garden still follows the laws of the slave world, the physical world, the rules of the authorities, dualities, cause and effect, life and death, you name it. But here's the twist. In the garden, you have the freedom to explore all of it. Think of it like gaining sight in a world where everyone is blind. Suddenly, you can move around, understand things, and do things that were impossible before. In the slave world, that kind of awareness can make you rich, famous, powerful, you name it. At first, many who get into the garden get caught up in this one-eyed freedom. They chase the money, the pleasures, the things they couldn't have before. But after a while, they realize something. They're still just more comfortable slaves. They might have nicer chains, but they're still chained. This can lead to a major crisis. They've got all the stuff, but they feel empty. They don't want to go back to being normal slaves, because they feel superior to common slaves, so they're stuck in this gilded cage. Some end up taking drastic measures to escape the emptiness. But there's another way, a path almost forgotten. It involves using our time in the garden to learn skills and gain knowledge that have nothing to do with wealth or power. These skills are unique to this space, personal to each individual. The goal, to use these skills to survive in the garden long enough for a way out to appear. Trust me, even if you don't see them at first, those exits can show up under the right circumstances. Finding those exits, that's the more advanced level of my martial arts spiritual teaching. Think of it this way. As slaves, we wear shackles because our authorities want us to. They even convince us it's for our own good that the shackles are our freedom. And we, like good little slaves, don't question it. We've worn them since birth. We trust our parents, teachers, and leaders, all the authority figures telling us it's right. Society reinforces it, saying, we need those shackles to be proper citizens. Eventually, we become so used to them that we don't even see them anymore. Sometimes, we get upgraded shackles, a little more comfortable, a little less obvious, depending on how well we play the game. The more diligent, obedient, and loyal we are, the better the perks. Got the picture? Now, imagine someone manages to break free. As they live in the garden, they start to see the world and themselves differently. What do they see? That the slave world is one big lie. That the truths they were taught were just manipulations. That they're one of many, and not who they thought they were. It's a mind-blowing realization. This can cause serious mental chaos, leading to breakdowns, depression, frustration, or even worse. Some try to use what they've learned to go back, becoming one-eyed slaves in a blind world. Some use their advantage to help others, some to exploit them. But then, there's something else that can happen, something rare. Even in the garden, the fugitive is still wearing shackles, the invisible ones of the mind. But then, they see them, and they start to crave true freedom. So, they get rid of the shackles. Immediately, they lose their place in the slave world. Other slaves become enemies, because being unchained is forbidden. They become outcasts, forced to live in the shadows. It seems hopeless, but here's the secret. The longer they live unchained, the more they see hidden paths. Paths to dark, unknown places, only whispered about in myths. But nothing to fear, these paths lead to places where real freedom can be found. Let's talk more about the garden itself. It's part of this world, but different. In the slave world, people follow orders, doing what others want. Free will is an illusion. But in the garden, we are in charge. We gain the ability to make our own desires a reality. Here, we develop a powerful state of mind that can literally make dreams come true. But we're on our own. We have to do everything ourselves, without being noticed, because the world will react badly to someone like that. This power can lead to psychological collapse, spiritual awakening, or, more often, the pursuit of personal gain. It depends on our character. Unfortunately, most people can't resist the temptation. Not that it's wrong, it's a choice. But my spiritual teachings focus on a different path, choosing to live in the garden under specific conditions. Letting go of the slave identity, dropping the shackles, and embracing the new self we would become in the garden. Think of it this way. Common people are like programmed androids, their minds filled with preset values and behaviors. They're basically walking projections of everything they've been taught. They even give this programming a name, ego. If people are just androids, following preset rules, it is possible to predict their behavior. We can even program them. That's what manipulation, propaganda, and brainwashing are all about. And the garden is where we learn how it's done. Understanding these dualistic laws is a powerful knowledge. We can discover that we don't have to trust the slave system settings. We have endless options, limited only by our imagination and wishes. Often, the best option is the hidden one, the one outside the offered choices. This means we can control our life, and even the lives of others, to achieve anything we can imagine. Again, our moral compass is the only limit. Sadly, many people ignore higher values, and focus on power, wealth, and pleasure. They're still just human, with all the flaws. But if you choose to stay in the garden, you have to forget about those things. You have to free yourself from greed, desire, and ego. You have to live anonymously, without attracting attention. You have to live fully, and deliberately. You have to live among others, as if everything is normal, while fighting inner battles every day. It's hard to live in a world you don't believe in, a world you don't want to be in, but you have to, because you don't know any other place yet. There's so much to do, and one mistake can end it all. But if you endure, you will be shown the way out, to freedom. I've talked about how people see the world through pre-drilled holes in the fence, made by authorities. Now, let's talk about another element that distorts our perception. Lalia. If you're starting to doubt this world, if what you thought was real is starting to feel fake, you're at the beginning of understanding the garden. You're starting to question what you've been told. Once you stop believing, you activate a different way of seeing everything, including yourself. You might even realize that what you've believed your whole life are mostly lies that have hurt or limited you. So, maybe then one question appears. Where do you think all those wrong beliefs came from? If you make a list, you'll probably find that they didn't come from you. You picked them up from other people, from the world around you. You didn't come up with anything on your own. You accepted everything as your own, without questioning it. You even claimed it as your truth. Don't believe me? Try this. Ask a friend to argue against your views. You'll probably defend your opinions fiercely, even in the face of logic. You'll convince yourself you're right, even if you're not. The stronger your friend's arguments, the more stubborn and angry you'll become. It's hard to explain why we do this, but let's focus on the result. When we defend opinions we've adopted from others, we never compromise. On the other hand, when we form our own opinions based on our experiences and knowledge, we're usually open to discussion. We listen to others, make compromises, and learn from the debate. We're prepared for criticism. If someone challenges our ideas, we try to convince them with logic. If they disprove us, we accept it, admit our mistakes, and adjust our worldview. We allow our opinions to evolve as we mature and learn. So, how do you know what's truly yours and what you've just adopted? After all, so many people believe in these things, and you've believed in them your whole life. Well, If a million people jump into lava, thinking it's fresh water, will you jump too? You might, if you couldn't see the lava. But if you know it's lava, what will you do? You'd say no, you're not crazy. But I'm going to disappoint you. You've been jumping into the lava your whole life. You're doing it because of the pressure from society and authority. Everyone around you is doing it, everyone believes it, so you do too. Lalia is what can help you find the strength to not jump into the lava. Let me give you an example. What about is Lalia? Imagine you're in a room with 1,000 monitors showing different movies. You can't watch them all, so you focus on a few that grab your attention. At first, the noise from all the monitors is distracting, but you get used to it. Eventually, you don't even notice it. You see it as background noise. That's how it is in your mind. Those thousands of monitors are your thoughts, the inherited ideas you've accumulated since childhood. As an adult, you've learned to focus on some of these thoughts, but you haven't checked to see which ones they are. You just perceive the thoughts that come to mind. What's wrong with that? Everything. All those playing monitors are unwanted thoughts that give you nothing beneficial. They distract you, burden your mind, and exhaust you emotionally. In fact, often unpleasant images are playing. Thoughts and memories you're ashamed of, opinions that annoy you, things that upset you. And to make it worse, you've been taught to believe everything that's playing on those monitors. Okay, it's not beneficial, but how do you change it? First, realize that you don't have to trust what's running on those monitors. It doesn't matter. It's just what you happen to be looking at right now. In a few seconds, your attention will jump somewhere else. It's impossible to watch everything and get anything meaningful out of it. And it's impossible to watch even the selected monitors, because hundreds of others are playing at the same time, distracting you. This visual and audio chaos is what I call Lalia. It's the hundreds of thoughts that come into your mind every day. Most of them are insignificant, unwanted, and harmless. They're not good or bad, just chatter. Like commercials you don't care about, just filler before your favorite show. You might think, so what? Everyone has these thoughts. But it hurts you, because you believe most of those thoughts. And since you have mostly negative thoughts, it's not good for your life. So, what can we do? Imagine you could see only the monitors you like. Imagine you could focus on them and ignore the distractions. Imagine you could understand and benefit from them. Imagine you could control the monitors, turning them on and off as you please, leaving only a select few on. And then, imagine you could turn them all off. That's what my martial arts spiritual teaching is about. We know our minds are filled with negative emotions like fear, hatred, envy, or greed. We know that the more we give into these things, the more we're controlled by others. We know that these negatives force us to follow rules that make us fit into society to our own detriment. Manipulative people exploit this. We know that this causes dissatisfaction, frustration, and unhappiness, draining our energy. But we also know that when we're content, happy, and joyful, we send our energy inward. And we radiate that positive energy to the close world around. Unfortunately, those moments are rare. Most of the time, our minds are covered in gray dust that leads us to succumb to negative elements. They sabotage any positive ideas. It varies from person to person, but sometimes it makes us violent, aggressive, or perverse. Other times, it makes us reckless, cruel, cowardly, or hateful. Sometimes, it makes us do things we know are wrong, but we can't help it. Sometimes, it triggers feelings of fear, confusion, hopelessness, stress, or sadness. So, we've proven that this state of mind is harmful. How can we change it? Fortunately, there's a way, and it's not unattainable. We've heard about it in fairy tales and seen it in movies. We even had it in us, when we were born. But as children, we didn't understand it, so we forgot about it. What is it? Sincere and unconditional love with appreciation. One of the most powerful things in the world. That's why all evil people are afraid of anything connected to love. If people believed in love and made it their only truth, the evil ones would lose their power. Love is the remedy for everything. It's the purest value that can suppress fear, create hope, and bring joy. It can give us faith, stronger than any weapon. Love contains all reality and strength against the negative influences of the world, including cruelty, injustice, and violence. But this pure form of love must not be mistaken for the false imitation that people adopt in society. That false love is destructive because it's conditional, selfish, and materialistic. To distinguish between the two, we need to recall pure love in our minds. Return to the time when we were children. When we were born, we were pure and innocent. We didn't worry, mind, or think. We followed our instincts and enjoyed everything spontaneously. We knew nothing of fear, envy, doubt, hatred, or depression. Our only needs were food, drink, touch, closeness, and care. We got all this from those who loved us. But soon, we began to receive something else, something truly human, which transformed us into adults. The influence of the environment and the people around us developed the negative within us, suppressed the love, and finished our transformation into due and proper slaves. So logic says, if we want to know our true nature, we have to go back to childhood. And how to find those forgotten ways is taught in the more advanced spirituality of my martial art.